Hi there, everyone. Welcome. I'm really glad that you could join me here today for this little half an hour session on ChatGPT. For those of you that don't know, my name is Matt, and I am a seasoned Microsoft 365 consultant. I deal predominantly with migrations, security, and productivity. I've got 15 years of experience in the field. I've been doing it just a little while now. And I'm a massive evangelist of Microsoft technologies and a big lover of artificial intelligence. Um, so that's a little bit about me. What are we going to be covering here? Well, I've been using ChatGPT since pretty much the day it came out. I've been trying to learn the platform and how I can apply it into my general day to day. The issue that I found with a lot of the content online is that a lot of people are writing about how to make this work for salespeople, or how to make it work for marketing, how to make it work for outreach, and not writing a lot about how to make it work for program managers, project managers, IT support people, people in a customer service center, how it can improve your general day to day, how you can get better results from ChatGPT on a topic you know nothing about from Google. So that's what we're going to be covering, how you can use ChatGPT to make your life better, mostly in work, but maybe in your personal life as well. I asked it a question about a money tree the other day that my other half is struggling to grow, and it came back with a brilliant answer. But I'll come on to that a little bit later. Um, so we're going to learn a little bit more about prompting. Everything's based off of my own experiences and what I've been doing in the platform, and I'll try and show you how I do everything and give away the prompts as we go. I'm going to assume that this isn't day one for people, and that you're familiar with ChatGPT, and that at least a few of you have, gone to chat.openai.com, opened an account, and you're all good with that. Just a note on that: be very, very careful if you are forwarded links from people asking you to go to chat.openai.com. They're not always legitimate. There's a lot of phishing going around and malicious URL links. So please do be careful. Yeah, it's very easy to fall for. There are lots of ways of looking an A look very much like an A that's not actually an A in a URL. So another assumption is that you are probably using ChatGPT 4. I've used ChatGPT 4 in pretty much all of my examples. It blows 3.5 out the water, apart with everything apart from processing speed when it comes down to generating the content. So it's $20 a month for the service. It's less than a Starbucks latte would cost you a week. So just go and invest in it. Don't even question it. Even if you use it once a month and it gives you something valuable, it's paid for itself, right? Okay. Your employer might even give it to you as like a paid for subscription, like they would with a training platform like Pluralsight, or if you are like me and self-employed, you can write it off as a tax deductible expense. Finally, we're going to layer up on the complexity throughout this little session. So please don't just, if you go, oh, well, that's really simple with the first couple of options, please don't just bail out. Just have the good grace to wait to the end, because it is going to get better and better as it goes on. I promise it'll be worth your time. And lastly, if you want a copy of the deck that we're going to go through, please just get in touch with me after, and I will quite gladly and happily send that along. So without further ado, I'm going to make myself a little bit smaller and pop myself down in the corner. There we go. So we've kind of run through the introductory bit already. So the chapters that we're going to go through here are the art of what's possible with just 60 minutes a day, summarizing a report or a block of text, creating content, how to give ChatGPT a personality or make it behave and speak differently, the importance of prompt iteration, how you can automate workflows, and how you can get ChatGPT to write like you in various different scenarios and situations. So no beating around the bush. Let's get straight onto it. So the art of what's possible in just 60 minutes a day. This chap, Zhao, I think is how you pronounce his name. I hope that's right. I've followed him and his AI aesthetic apparel journey since day one. His mission was to see what you could do with ChatGPT with just 1 hour a day of your time. ChatGPT was going to be the CEO, or is the CEO of the company, and has to make all of the big boy decisions. And Zhao sits there as the employee or executive assistant. So he is on, I don't know if you can see but he's on day 74 here, and that is a very large amount of what I think is Danish kroner, which equates to 78,000 pounds and change, in case you are wondering. So that makes that a £1,000 a day opportunity. That Danish kroner came in from their first big investor, I believe, who was investing into the platform. Word of caution before everybody thinks, oh, well, I can just go and do that and stop working. That would be great if we all could do that. I wouldn't be doing this if that was the case. But Zhao has a very, very big following on social media, and he specializes in selling startups and getting funding for small businesses. So, there's a little bit of leaning on his network there, I suspect, maybe just a little bit. And he already has a very, very good following. But this is just how big the opportunity is here, right? Look at that figure just one more time: £78,000 in under 100 days is unbelievable in terms of investment. So, jumping into using ChatGPT and how we actually go about our business then. So, document summarization. I received, this is an example that actually happened to me. I received a big behemoth of a document for one of my rental properties, and effectively I didn't have time to read it at the time, but I did kind of want to know what was going on because it looked really big, long, scary, and had a bill associated with it from the management company. So I thought, well, I could just put it into ChatGPT and ask it to summarize the document. And so I did. And it did a pretty good job. I had a quick look of the key findings, quickly decided, actually, I need to put some time aside to work on that and to look at that properly. Read through the whole document, and yeah, it did a really, really good job of quickly summarizing the document for me. I would say if anyone deals with documents on a daily basis and wants a quick way of prioritizing which document should I do first, or can maybe if I get a summarization of these 5 documents that will help me prioritize, then that's a really good little time saver there. Just put them all through ChatGPT, get the summaries, and then you can go, right, okay, these are the ones I need to act on the fastest. When I wrote this, the ChatGPT 4 didn't have the recent plugins and web browsing capabilities that have been added to it. Now that you've got that, you've actually got tools specifically for doing this. So you can actually ingest a PDF into ChatGPT and then ask it questions about the PDF, which is a super, super, super powerful use case for extracting bits out of documents, maybe helping you rewrite something that's in a PDF already. It can be difficult to get stuff out of PDFs. I think it's a great little use case there. So creating content. I try to keep this as far away from sales and marketing and stuff, and more on how we'd use it as professionals. So example number 1, a short form of content. And what I mean a short form, I mean like 100, maybe 200 words. I was writing a proposal document for a customer, and I needed to describe Azure AD. And I didn't want to just copy and paste something off of docs.microsoft.com. So I said, it's ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, in 100 words, can you explain what Azure AD is? I then took that little snippet, put it into my document, proofed it, changed it to make it sound a bit more authentic and a bit more like me. And I had that little bit of text that I needed. And it saved me having to really sit there, get out of the flow of what I was doing, which was doing an audit. Wasn't an audit, sorry, it's a proposal. And think about what I needed to be writing about further down about Azure AD, and have to think about how do I describe this. That's for sort of small blocks of text, and they're probably less valuable. For bigger blocks of text, you need to provide context. Now, I've said before, if anyone's seen any of my other sessions on ChatGPT, context is absolutely everything. You need to ground ChatGPT in context to get a more valuable output from it. If you don't give it any context, you don't give it any relevant information, you're going to have a pretty rough time if you're trying to produce a big, specific text block for whatever document it is that you're writing. So I've been looking at cybersecurity in the education sector, and I wanted to make some content about it for LinkedIn Live and for some other project which I'll touch on later. But my prompt was effectively, hey, ChatGPT, I'm creating some marketing content to use with LinkedIn adverts. This content targets schools and colleges in the UK and is focused on cybersecurity and data protection. I'm telling it exactly what I want. I'm telling it the platform that I'm using. I'm telling it the target market, and I'm telling it what country that I'm in to try and get the most relevant facts. I need you to provide me with some facts and statistics from 2022 and 2023, again, being super specific with the year to make sure that it's relevant and recent, about cybercrime in the education sector to help with my marketing material. So you could apply this to anything, though. So if you wanted to get some statistics for a document that you were writing, or if you wanted to get super niche into any topic, just provide more and more context. The more context you provide, the better the results that you're going to get. And this is an example of providing a much longer prompt and putting more time into your prompt to spend less time on the back end editing the material afterwards. So, with that, we'll move on to giving ChatGPT a persona and the importance of iteration. So, we've already covered context in that last slide. Context and iteration are probably the two most important things that you want to consider when you're using ChatGPT. Context is the grounding that tells GPT all the background information. Iteration is you providing valuable feedback to ChatGPT to get a better output further on down the line in your chat. But before that, let's talk about a persona. So this was something that was quite fun because what you can do is effectively give ChatGPT a voice and tell it to behave in a way that you would like to or is desirable for your scenario. So I effectively just I kind of riffed it here with this particular chat because I was seeing what the boundaries were and what would happen. And I said, "Hey, ChatGPT, I want you to become Alice. Alice is I can't actually read that because it's quite minimized, but a 20 something working in cybersecurity who enjoys sports on the weekend, is quite funny, likes to use humor, blah, blah, blah. Um, do you understand?" And it's very important at the end of your prompt to say, "Do you understand?" Make sure that ChatGPT comes back and says, "I understand. I'll adopt the persona of whoever you've asked," and then get that confirmation. Once you've done that, you can then start asking Alice questions and getting a response in the language that you have asked for or the persona that you have asked for. And this is quite useful because we can actually get ChatGPT to write as people other than ourselves or other than the tone of voice that we've developed across the chat or previous chats. What I've learned through using ChatGPT is a lot of the time, if you haven't done that personaing and you haven't done that giving it a voice or a tone, it will effectively mirror the way that you're talking to it, right? So if I was talking in this really conversational, professional-ish tone to ChatGPT, it would talk very similarly back to me. Whereas if I said, "Yo, ChatGPT, what's up, my man?" He's going to talk he. ChatGPT isn't a he. All sorts of pronoun issues there. ChatGPT is going to come back and write back in a very similar style. It will effectively mirror how we're talking to it. And that actually, I'm going to just segue ever so slightly. I've found I've got better results with ChatGPT when I'm polite. It's going to sound really very strange, but if I ask and say, ChatGPT, can you please do this? Thank you. That was good output. That kind of thing. I've always got better results. I don't know why. If I've gone in super hard and said, ChatGPT, I want X, it's produced the output, but it's much more blunt, and I actually find it a little bit less useful. And that might be to do with that mirroring. But anyway, so that's how you can give ChatGPT a persona and get it to talk in a voice that you particularly want for whatever objective or outcome it is that you are trying to achieve. Now, this prompt in particular led me really nicely into the importance of iteration. So I asked ChatGPT a question when it adopted the persona of Alice, and I didn't like the answer. So I said, "Alice also likes to use humor when explaining complicated topics." And immediately, ChatGPT says, got it. Cybersecurity is like being a digital goalie in the world's biggest never-ending game of football, and then goes on to explain it in a much more amusing way. And that's cool. And that's an example of iterating on top of what you've already done to get a better output, right? effectively providing that feedback is a steer or a rudder to let ChatGPT know, hey, look, I wasn't quite happy with that. Here's how you can make it better. And what you'll find is the more feedback that you provide throughout an exchange with ChatGPT, the better and better your results will get as the chat gets longer and longer. Also, note that the iteration only applies to that chat. If you open a new chat with ChatGPT, new topic, new subject, that all goes away. All of that rich history that you built up in the chat, that's gone. So don't think on that. Don't think that just by doing it once, that's then ChatGPT's voice forever for you. That's absolutely not the case. So just be a bit careful when if you're recycling or reusing your chats in the ChatGPT interface. Just be mindful of that. So let's move on to the next slide. Automating workflows. Now, the iteration bit is gonna come in here as well, and start building on some of the things that we've talked about. So I had a problem. I needed some emails that weren't visible to other people to become visible to other people. And I thought, well, how can I do that? What's the easiest way of doing it? I could just set up an email rule that forwarded it onto a distribution list, but that didn't seem that great. A lot of my team live in Microsoft Teams, and that's just where we do a lot of work. So I thought, well, hey, I could use Power Automate, which is a Microsoft tool. If you're familiar with the Microsoft stack, and if you've got Microsoft 365, you'll have that, to automate this and then take the information from the email and then pop it into a Teams group chat with everybody in, which will then give everybody the notification. No harm, no foul, all good. I went into Power Automate and tried to look for a templated workflow, and there wasn't one that existed for my exact use case. I thought, that's annoying, but I know who can help. And I went and immediately thought, well, of course, ChatGPT will be able to solve this. So ChatGPT obviously can write code in pretty much any programming language you ask it to. And Power Automate is effectively a WYSIWYG editor that sits on top of a bunch of code, right? So it can write the code underneath all the workflow for us. So I set the task and said to ChatGPT, I need you to write me a Power Automate workflow which sends a message to a group chat in Teams every time I receive an email with the subject that contains XYZ. The workflow should take the subject line of the email, then post that as a message into a Teams group chat with high priority. As we can see from the response, it comes back with something that is super comprehensive and gave me a step-by-step breakdown of the steps that I needed to do, and was it was good. However, what I discovered after starting my little journey of automation was that I couldn't find the ID of the Teams chat, and despite trying and trying, I still couldn't find it, and that was a problem. Just going to take a sip of tea. So when I couldn't find that, I thought, I know who can. ChatGPT can. So I said, wait, how do I find the team chat ID in Teams? And it almost immediately came back with the instructions that I needed in order to find that chat ID, which then allowed me to carry on and finish writing the workflow. And that's another example of iteration, right? How the first bit of text that ChatGPT wrote wasn't quite right, but I got to where I needed to go by asking another question. Had I known that I needed the chat ID in the first place, however, what I could have done is in that prompt to say, I don't know how to get the chat ID. How do I get that? Include that in your instructions. So again, just try and give ChatGPT as much information about the topic and as much context as possible. I can't emphasize that enough. So again, here's the method and the prompt, followed by questions and iteration. How do I do X, Y, Z? Where do I find this option? Can you tell me more about this in the workflow? And then after that iteration, you've got the support and help. And again, this all needs to stay in the same chat. If you start breaking it out into separate chats, you're going to lose all of the history and it's going to lose the context. My workflow didn't work. I got an error. My workflow worked, but XYZ was wrong. ask these questions, you'll get feedback and you'll get contextualized feedback. The other thing that you could do is you could approach this from the other way, right? You could write a workflow and you could say, hey, this is the workflow that I've written. This is the outcome that I've got. It's not quite what I want. What do I need to do to change it? And that's another way that you could approach the very same problem. But yeah, as too long didn't read. Use ChatGPT to automate stuff that otherwise you wouldn't be able to automate, and try and save time that way. Another really cool thing that I learned and discovered, and this comes down to a bit of product knowledge, is that you can actually create Excel sheets with Python. So if you say to ChatGPT, hey, ChatGPT, create me a Gantt chart, create it in Excel, it will say, yeah, no problem, that's absolutely fine. And then if you say create it in Python, and then post it into a Python IDE, and then it will create the Excel sheet with the Gantt chart and all the bits and pieces. Now, you'll need to provide it tons more context. You need to iterate on top of that a few times to get the output that you want, but that is how you could very quickly create a Gantt chart without having to sit there in Excel, manually create all the rows and do all the things that you need to do to create a Gantt chart. I'm not a project manager, so I can't say. You can also get it to create a PowerPoint deck by using macros. So you can say, hey, ChatGPT, I'm writing a PowerPoint deck. It's got to have this content on it. And this is how I want it to look. Create me a macro. So two super valuable takeaways there. You could also do the same with many other products, I imagine, in the Microsoft stack, just FYI. So learning your writing style. This for me has been probably the most game-changing thing, I would say, because I can get ChatGPT to write a lot of content for me. And when I say content, I don't mean blog posts necessarily or LinkedIn posts. I mean emails, Teams chats, meeting notes, anything that you need to write down. You can get ChatGPT to do it for you much quicker if you just give it some context. But in order to do that, we first need it to learn our writing styles, because typically what we find is that we write in different styles for different formats, right? So I'm clearly going to write very differently on email than I am to a new customer potentially, than I am, say, in Teams to one of my team. I'm going to write very differently in a LinkedIn post to how I am in my blog. I know I said I wouldn't use that as an example. I kind of hate myself a bit for doing it right now, but it's true. There are lots of different mediums that we use for writing, and we have a style for each of them. So what you need to do is you need to open a chat for each style, and you need to give it a title that's obvious at the top. And then you need to feed some content into ChatGPT, and you say, hey, ChatGPT, I need you to learn my writing style. Can I provide you with a block of text for you to learn my writing style? I am trying to write X about Y. It will then say, sure, paste in the block of text. You paste it in. Now, that first piece of content, written content for whatever platform it might be, let's just say emails, right? So you want to write email or get ChatGPT to start writing some of your email. You need to make sure that those emails are the best example of you, your tone of voice, how you punctuate, how you use grammar, and anything else that you might like to consider, because it is going to try to learn that verbatim. You then need to find 2 or 3 other examples that are also a pillar of that writing style that you want ChatGPT to embody. Okay. So find those, put them in, get it to learn the style, and then start asking it to generate some emails for you. Do the same with Teams chats, but find Teams messages that are a decent length that you've sent that it can use to learn your style, or lots and lots of smaller, shorter messages, and post those in for context. The more you throw at it, the more data you give it, the better your results are going to be. I cannot tell you how much time this has saved me. I'm working, I can't say too much, but I'm working on a very, very large piece of content at the moment, and it is a lifesaver because I'm not having to sit there and creatively think all of the time, which I find drains my brain something chronic. It's freeing up my brain to actually look at the text, look at suggestions, and then come up with more ideas and add more of my own content. I had a bit of an argument with someone about how ChatGPT generates low quality content the other day, and it's not low quality at all. if you prompt correctly, it's going to be very, very, very high quality content. The more you prompt in, the more you're going to get out at the back end in terms of output. So just for a couple of key takeaways with the writing styles, then we talked about the mirroring and the way ChatGPT will mirror the way it responds back to you. So kind of try and make sure that however you want it to write, even though you've provided it with a style, keep writing in that kind of style, in that kind of tone when you're asking it and prompting it. I've asked for gradings and scales so I can adjust responses using numbers. So, for example, I wanted a conversational and informal tone for a particular piece of content, and ChatGPT ranked it 8 out of 10 as being conversational in terms of professional. So I said, look, let's bump that down to a 7, regenerate, and then that was a bit too professional. So I said, look, somewhere in the middle, and it came out with a roughly right response that I was then able to just do a couple of tweaks to rather than lots and lots of tweaks. And then further and further down the journey that you go, what you can actually do is take these snippets that you have created with ChatGPT, take the edits that you have made, and then put them back into ChatGPT and say, okay, that was good. Here is what I actually sent in terms of the email thing. So this is what you wrote. That's great. You go and edit it, put it back into ChatGPT and say, this is what I sent. And it will go, thank you for the feedback. That's great. I know in future how you want me to speak and the tone of voice that you want me to use, and how you want me to behave. So it's a really, really good way of getting more and more out of it and providing more and more context the longer and longer you go. So I think that is just about it for the deck. I can see that we've got a couple of people in the comments. So let's just have a look. Okay, so we've got some questions on how you get information from past 2021. So in order to answer your question, Mike, the way that you do that is you pay for ChatGPT 4. It is $20 a month, and you have this option of browsing the web. And you can then go and get ChatGPT to browse out to the web. The other thing that you can do, as Karen has mentioned, is you can also go to Bing Chat. I would advise that Bing Chat and ChatGPT are slightly different in the way that they behave based on what I have seen. I personally prefer to use ChatGPT and then use the internet browsing plugin, although I do think that Bing Chat absolutely has its place and its value. Just looking at another question here: how to switch on a plugin in ChatGPT. So if you want to switch on a plugin in ChatGPT, what you have to do is, again, be using ChatGPT 4 and be on the subscription, $20 a month. You then have to open up a chat with ChatGPT, and you'll get a little drop down with a couple of options for plugins. What I can actually do, because we have just a little bit of time, is quickly log in to ChatGPT and see if I can do an example. Give me a second. Okay, so if I just add my screen to StreamYard. Let's see. I want to make sure that I get the right tab here. Otherwise, it's going to be a bit poor. Right. Okay, cool. Hopefully everybody can see that. So this is the ChatGPT interface for those who didn't know. I'm sure you did. So if you click GPT-4 over here when you're starting a new chat, and then if you use default, that will have the knowledge cutoff date of 2021. If you use browse with Bing, that will get you browsing out onto the web. And if you select plugins, then you'll get the option of using additional plugins. For the plugins, if you click this little drop down here, you can then use the plugins that you've got, or you can go and visit the plugin store and then search for what you need. So you would have seen there, for anyone with keen eyes, I had a couple of different options. I had Portfolio Pilot, which is something I was messing around with for finance, and Ask Your PDF, which is a PDF a reader effectively, which I mentioned earlier on in the video. But these are just the popular ones in the first 3 pages. You can search for whatever it is you need. There are tons of different plugins available now. People are adding these like every day. I know it looks like there's only 3 pages. I promise you, this is just the top 20 or whatever. There's way more. I think that's 20. I clearly can't count, but maybe 15. But yeah, that is where you find those and how you use them. I think we've got another question from Matt. So 2 questions. When you prompt the writing persona, can you save the setup for a later session? Okay, so what you can't do that, Matt. You can't effectively like take the persona from one chat and then shift it into another. But what you can do is, if you can see on the left-hand side here, all of the chats that I've ever done are there in the chat history, and that's an option that you can turn on or off in ChatGPT. I would suggest leaving it turned on. What you can then do is you can go back and get the persona that's adopted. So here if you see, I've got one that's creating a persona, and this was in fact this was where I created Alice, as you saw in the deck, the trendy 20-something who worked in cybersecurity. So yeah, if you wanted to then go and ask Alice another question, you just simply go back to the chat and then type it in. I mentioned that she liked sports and asked about the Formula One, so we could say to her, how did you find the Formula One last weekend, for example, and it will generate a response as Alice in theory. That's obviously a very boring example and not a great use case, but it's the first one that I can think of the top of my head off the cuff. And in terms of sharing the slides, yes, of course I can, no problem at all. For anyone that wants to, you can just get in touch with me via LinkedIn, drop a comment in, and I will share the slides with you either via LinkedIn Messenger or via email. No problem at all. We're pretty much at time, or just a couple of minutes over. So thank you everyone for staying around. Did we have any more questions before I head off? I'm aware that there's a little bit of a delay on LinkedIn, so I'm just going to sit here and hang around and hope that I'm not sat in silence for too long. Maybe another swig of tea. Actually, it's Tea Pig's mint tea today. It's really good. Just another maybe 20 seconds. I'm going to give people a chance to type and for it to filter through into StreamYard. No. Oh, am I planning any future events artificial intelligence that got in just in time? Yes, Tanya, I am. Yes, I am planning to do a little bit more with AI and do some more LinkedIn lives like this. If anyone wants a bit more of a deep dive or to go into a little bit more detail with anything, just get in touch. I'm more than happy to help where I can, and see where it goes. Just before everyone leaves, I just want to. So ChatGPT has now generated the response, the response from the response from the question that I asked Alice. And yeah, the Formula One race last weekend was quite a spectacle. Verstappen dominated, capturing his 4th straight win, marking Red Bull's 100th win. Oh, this guy is on fire. He's won 20 out of his last 27 races. There's some serious vroom vroom power. Would I expect a 20-year-old who likes sports and cybersecurity to reply like this? Yes, I would. I think this is absolutely awesome, and super glad that I got to show you before the stream ended. There's one more question. Perplexity provides GPT-4 for free. I don't know anything about that, to be honest. I'm sorry. I've not heard of that. But I think anyone saying that they can offer you ChatGPT-4 for free, I'd be a little bit sketchy on that. I'd use Bing Chat and be safe rather than, maybe be handing my information over to someone random on the internet. But some people think that you're doing that with ChatGPT, so then there's that. Anyway, I think that's all I've about got time for now. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Keep an eye on my feeds. Oh, one more from Adam Whitney. Any experience of summarizing legal docs into layman style summaries? That's a really, really interesting question, actually, Adam, because it's not exactly what I did, but I had to look up some privacy laws in France with relation to email data. I had absolutely no idea where to start. I asked Google first before going to ChatGPT, and what I found was that it was all about consumer data, right? And for me, it was all about data loss prevention and what you were allowed to monitor and not monitor, being in the world that I work in. So none of the Google results were relevant, and they didn't want to spend hours going through down to page 5 of the search results or further. So I asked ChatGPT to kind of come up with some points that might be relevant and gave it a whole load of context, and it came up with some pretty good answers. I didn't. It didn't give me a legal document that I then had to summarize into lay terms, but did. It did give me some ideas of the legalities, and it gave me enough of a idea of what I needed to say to then have a conversation with a legal person to then get a little bit more up to speed with the specifics. So, in terms of your use case and needing to summarize a legal document into layman's terms, you could use a prompt like, for example, um, here's this document. I need you to explain it to me in a way that's easy to understand. And if it didn't give you the response that you wanted, there's a little trick that you can use and you just say, explain this to me like I'm 5. And if that's too simple, then explain this to me like I'm 10. And then ChatGPT effectively dumbs itself down and dumbs the responses down. Um, yeah, I hope that answers your question or gives you a bit of insight or somewhere that you can go with that. If you need any help with it, feel free to ping me a message and we'll chat offline. But yeah, no, honestly, I've been absolutely overwhelmed with the response to this event. So honestly, thank you all so much for joining. It's really good to see everyone and have so many questions and engagement in the comments. And look, keep an eye on my profile. Follow me if you're not already following, and I'll do something in the very near future. If you've got anything you want to see particularly or anything you'd like to know about more, send me a message or get in touch, leave a comment, whatever, however you want to do it. No problem. I'm always around, and we'll fit it into the next session. Until then, I hope you all have a great evening. Enjoy the sunshine, and I'll see you again soon.